All right, it's Friday, November 17th. This is an end of the day and end of the week SPY recap. So here's our weekly update. For today, we ended up with a two-up green bar that kind of held the midpoint of the prior day. It made a new high relative to yesterday, and it worked its way up and took out that target here, which was Wednesday's high. So in other words, these two bars were broadening out as expected, above that high once you got the two-up day, and then it kind of settled in a little bit. If you really look at it, these 4 days are pretty much sideways. If I take the 15-minute chart and zoom it out, ever since that gap up, we've been pretty much just going sideways. So we're either pausing for a more of a directional push up, or maybe it's time for a little bit of a reversal. That's what it's hard to say right now going into next week. The weekly chart, while it was strongly green, so you kind of expect that high to be tested. And if that high is taken out, then we should probably hit that next target up here. That's still what I'm anticipating. That's also the monthly target that I'm expecting to be taken out. And ever since we have a two-up month, we're looking for that target. Just tough to say, if we get another strong green bar up, or maybe we get some kind of, like these two red bars, if we get kind of a red consolidation, maybe an inside bar, maybe it probes up there and then starts a little bit of a pullback, even though we're anticipating some highs to be taken out. Just got to go day by day and see. But I do expect after a big green bar, you kind of expect that high to be tested, unless we gap down, and then maybe it would be more of an inside bar. I still don't really see the downside yet. We'd have to kind of get a two-up failure that has to come all the way down through the midpoint. That's possible. Or if we start down red, it's a long way to go to get a two-down week to start going to those targets. So we'll just have to see what happens. But for today, it was the type of thing where coming into the day, again, after this kind of two-down reverse green bar yesterday, you were expecting higher. So, and you can see here, price never really got below the midpoint of the prior day, even though it started right at the low end of the pre-market range between the blue lines. So if you look at the 15-minute chart, you had the blue lines here, you have your up bias, and right out of the gates, the market was up pretty strong, and then it sort of fell off near the open, and then it had a red bar to start. But on the very next bar, it kind of just, now you have this red neutral bar to start. The reference points are always the high and low of that bar. Next bar was inside, then it went down again. So all of a sudden you can sense that there's going to be kind of a pause, delayed action until it really breaks above that first bar high. You can't, I'm not looking to get long yet, even though I'm biased to the upside with a target up here, towards that high on Wednesday. But so I'm just watching and waiting. Then it had an attempt breakout here, didn't do anything, came back down. It's going, all these inside bars. I've seen this pattern a lot, whether it happens at the bottom of the pre-market range or the top. Sometimes you just get a bunch of pausing and then you get the breakout. So I was kind of expecting that today. And then all of a sudden, it made a big push down here, took out stops, and then had a big hammer bar to the upside. And I bought some calls right here, and I shot a video on that. And again, that falls in line with what I was talking about. When you're in this uptrend and you have a bit of exhaustion risk, you're always, to me, price action wise, thinking of the algorithmic nature of price action, you could take out stops on the downside first, shake people out before heading higher. So when I saw this take this out and not follow through, and immediately come back up into the range, I had a feeling that's all that was, and I was going to take a chance that this was going to be the low of the day. Bought calls here, then I shot some videos how it took out the high of the day, that first bar. There's where people are buying the breakout, and then look what happened. There's a liquidity area that can cause, people to it get shaken out in some way. If they buy the breakout, then all of a sudden it comes down. That happens a lot at these key levels. That was the target, and you can see here it decides to pause a little bit, but then it held and continued up, and that was kind of a good morning trade up here. And I kind of discussed how, since we were really, it took a long time to break out, and then it was just grinding up here. I wasn't positive it was going to take out that pre-market high, but as it turns out, it went right to yesterday's, that Wednesday high, took that out. Well, maybe not on this first push, then it paused, second push. And once you saw this shooter bar in here, that was kind of it for the day with just a couple, 2 bars to go. So it was very late in the day. It was trying to keep going up, but, all you can ask for is, that it kind of took out that target it was supposed to take out. It never quite built momentum to get to the pre-market highs, and that's fine. So it was a decent trade here. The other way to play it, if you didn't buy the aggressive, attempt that I did, once you saw it take out the first bar high, I like to see if at that point you get a big failure or if it's just, get an orderly pause, the first pullback and then buy it. So I think if you didn't do anything in here, we're just watching with a bias to the upside and it took out that bar high and you saw that red bar, then you saw the inside bar and then you saw the inside bar break up, this was a buy right here, kind of the secondary buy to then have a good hour or hour and 15 minutes to the upside if you wanted to play that. But that, according to, just the way I consistently try to view this 15-minute structure. So to me, the only things to do today were to aggressively buy here on this failure to take out those lows, and maybe a buy here once it took out the first bar high, gave you a pause and started up again. So that's how the week ends with a little 2-up green bar. We will see what develops into next week. Again, we can get a 2 down if we go start below the midpoint of this bar, and then all of a sudden we can hit this target and we still have a gap in here to fill. And if we fill that gap, that starts coming down below the midpoint of this green. This is a pretty big green bar to really take out the lows. So if we start lower next week, I would anticipate kind of an inside bar forming, and we'll get into that day by day. But that's going to require early in the week, starting lower, taking out this target, getting into this gap, not really ever following through to the lows of that day, but not having enough, momentum to really do anything to the upside, and it would just maybe be a lot of choppiness in here, and then we can get other signals up or down, in the weeks ahead. So we'll find that out. The other option, obviously, or the other possibility is that we just, even though we paused here and we're pausing for 4 days, it's just building up energy for another big move up to go more in line with some of these bigger picture targets and the continuity of the upside. So we'll find that out as well. But for today, again, while it wasn't the most exciting day and it took a little patience, there was definitely some indications, to try the buy side a couple of times. So we will see really what unfolds next week as we kind of monitor at this moment kind of this sideways action that's unfolding that, should get some kind of move up or down one way or the other.